In this module, I'm going to talk about email notifications. BISL has the ability to send 3 types of emails. The first type of email is an alert that occurs upon a new work item. You've been assigned a new work item, an activity executes, puts a work item in your work list, and you want to notify that user that they have some task to perform. That is the first type of email that can go out. The second type of email is the result of an activity deadline. So a deadline occurs in an activity, or a deadline is going to occur soon and an alert is sent, an email alert. That's another way we can use emails. And then a notification to someone outside of the tasks. You're not being assigned something to do, but you want to send some notification to someone outside of the participants of the process. And that could be outside of the BizFlow system altogether. It could be somebody externally. The first type you can see here is configured on the Mail tab of an activity. And I'm going to show you each of these. The second type is on the deadline, and you saw that when we looked at deadlines that there was an email option that you could set up on a deadline alert. And then the third type, as I mentioned, is an actual activity in and of itself, and it's a way to send an email outside of a task assignment or deadline. So going back to our process, I'll start with the email activity type. Here we have email activity type in our palette, and we can drag and drop that into our canvas, our process canvas, and then link it like we can any other type of activity. So to configure this email activity, I would use the property tab, and you can see I have a to, CC, from, reply to, subject, and the body of the email. And then I can also check these items if I wanted to send any attachments that had been made. Perhaps to this initial step in the flow, I want any attachments to actually go to the email as well, and any comments. The to assign the to, we can use any of the users in BizFlow that are defined in BizFlow and rules, such as the last participant of the preceding activity, or we can use a variable. In order to use a variable, we would have to define one, because when we say define by variable, then we're going to have to select one from the list. In order to do that, on our process, we would have a variable, and we would add a variable such as email, and we would define it as a process variable or a participant variable. And in this way, it can be used on our email activity. So you see now I have this email variable that I can then use as my assignment. Or I can explicitly define an email address, and I can literally put that right here. And now again, when I go to assign that email, you can see that it actually added not only the variable, but it also added the email that I explicitly defined in that address area. Again, right here in my email address area. So there's different ways that I can assign emails. And then of course the CC and from, I can do the same type of thing. And then I can add my subject and any body that I want to put in my email. Now, one other way that we can use variables is if we wanted to personalize this email. And there's really 2 types of data that we can incorporate. We can use process variables, so we can use any of the variables that have been defined on the process, and that would be, for example, any of the form fields that were filled out. So if we wanted this person to receive this email and know what information was in that form, we could actually use the variables in the message. And we can say to whom it may concern. And of course this is a time off request. This individual made a time off request. here we could use the variables. We could say the person's last name, first name, and so on. So to use a variable in the body of our email, we simply have to preface it with $, and the word variable. And then in the brackets, we would actually put the name of the variable that we created on the process definition. So now when the person fills out that form, it stores the value of that variable in last name, and then here it will literally show up as Chanel and Danielle. With that understood, the next type of email that we can send out is actually a task notification. And you're going to notice that this type of email is a little bit easier, I guess you could say, to set up and configure. And in large part that was done because this is a newer function in the application. It was built at a later point in time. So on a given activity, if I want to send an email notification, I can simply click Send Email Notify, and it has an HTML form, and it has the ability here to use this rich text editor to lay out or set up this particular email. You could, by the way, use HTML as well in this type of notification. You would simply have to type the HTML yourself, actually knowing the HTML syntax. But in this one, you can set up and use the template that's predefined, or you can apply and add your own templates. And you can see here that you can incorporate variables in the same way. So you can say $, variable, and in this case, they're using an example of total amount. So this, of course, would be replaced with your own variables. And the other thing that you notice is it's using these other items, and these are considered reserved words. So this is information that BizFlow has and is storing about these processes that you could use, and you simply have to use $, and then the name of the reserved word. This is a listing of all of the reserved words that are provided in BizFlow. So if I wanted to put in the user's job title, for example, I could use this reserved word, and I could create in my message something like the person with job title of XYZ, and I could put in $, job title. And so everywhere we have this is of course going to be replaced with the relevant information for this particular instance, for this particular time off request. It's going to have time off request as the process name, the description, the initiator name, so who started the process, and then here I could put in any custom variables, the variables that I've defined on the process, like the time off request type and the time and who made it, and so on. The other item that you notice in this particular email is this response.name. And this functionality or capability allows you to let the user, when they receive this email, take the response that you defined. So if you recall, when we created our manager approval step, we created a response option on this step, and we're giving that user the ability to approve or disapprove this item when they receive it. What we can do in the email is, by keeping that code in the body of the email, when they receive that email message, they're going to see an option to approve or disapprove that item. So right where it shows response, it's actually going to display the response options that they have, approve or disapprove, and they can select that right from the email itself. So they never actually have to go to the work list and open the work item. You could put all of the variable data or all the form data right here within the body of the email, and then give the person the ability to approve or disapprove the item right here in the email itself. Now, in addition to doing it in traditional email on your laptop or your desktop, this was form fitted in order to be sized for a mobile device. This same screen will show up in a mobile device, and you're able to then allow somebody to approve an expense report or a time off request or anything else right on their mobile device. And then the last type of email that we have is the deadline email. Again, in the same way that we configured the deadline alert using a priority escalation, we could have sent a mail notification. And this mail notification is going to be configured the same way that we configured our other email notification. We have a subject, a message, we can use variables in that message, and so on. Those are the three different types of emails that you can send from BizFlow. And I should point out that these email messages are coming from just a regular SMTP server, so you can figure which server those email messages are going to be sent from, and there's nothing proprietary about it, and of course it'll work in the inbox of any email system.